this is Yuri from Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports, and today we're going to have a look at the LMP2 at Road Atlanta. This time we're going to look for Petit coming up. So we're going to focus on not only what lines to take, but we're going to have a look at how to maybe think for the race as well, what kind of strategy you want to do and what to look out for a strategy like that. So without further ado, let's have a look at the lap and then let's have a look further into some details. So here we are starting a lap, and at the start of the race especially, the track temp and the air temp will be quite high. And what that's going to do for our car, especially in the LMP2, is we're going to struggle even more in corner exits with traction. And it will force us to be careful with our throttle and try to set up the exits well, especially if we want to double stint the rear tires. Turn 1, try to go to the left side, get a good entry. Straight line braking for turn 2. Careful with the rear on this curb here. And get the car straight going onto those curbs. We'll keep the bouncy from upsetting the car. Aim for the left side tires on the curb. Focus on the corner exit here. Bit of bumping on the car is fine, as long as you don't lose traction and hit the TC there. Coming into the last chicane, and again we want to focus on sacrificing the entry a bit, sacrificing the left-hander for a good run on top of the hill. So sacrifice the left-hander a bit for a good run to the top of the hill. And that's the lap in the LMP2 car around Road Atlanta. Right, so here we are starting our lap. And just like last week in the Porsche GT3, what I like to do is use a bit of timing on the left side. And going on to that, I want to go in a straight line to not upset the car too much, turning quite heavily left and then immediately right again. So I move towards the middle of the track a bit, and then in a fluent line, go towards this left side. And you can even clip a bit of the grass to make that a bit more fluent. So go to the left here. Quick tap on the brake, and then quite early off the brake, gets the car rotated in for turn 1. So quick tap on the brakes here, and quite early off the brakes, and you aim for this point here on the inside curb, the kink on the curb, as your apex point. And what you want to look out for is on the corner exit, to not run on the exit curb or very close to it, because the car starts understeering. And we run to turn 2, and we want to open up turn 2 here, because we want to end up on the curb on the left side once we're on top of the hill. But again, if you go to the cockpit view, you can't see that curb on the left side. So what we want to do is look for this line here on the track, black line, and be just inside that black line once we get to the top of the hill. It looks like this. And then we want to aim for this curb on the left side here. And we want to brake on it as straight as we can. For braking on this, in a straight line, you can brake a tiny bit harder without upsetting the car. Turn 2, very important in the LMP2 car that you hit this curb here with the right angle. Because we get a couple bounces if you hit the curb. If you hit this curb with an angle too shallow, you start bouncing towards the outside of the track here and you'll have to slow down a lot. So you need to have a good angle so that once we go over the curb and the car bounces a bit, it bounces towards the exit curb where you want to go anyways. So you want to have a good angle going onto this curb. If you have a good angle, the car still bounces, but it bounces towards the exit curb where we want to go. Then the left-hander here, it's quite hot, especially at the start of the race. So what we want to look out for is the rear starting to slide too much on this curb. So we want to go on this curb and not go quite full throttle. That way we relieve a bit of stress from this outside rear tire, and it prevents it from sliding and putting too much heat and energy into it. That saves our tire over the stint. And that's going to be especially important once we talk about later what kind of strategy options we have to not overuse the outside tires or the rear tires. You see, we even with this bit of throttle here, we have a small slide coming off the curb. If we're too aggressive on the throttle, the rear will completely slide off here. Then for the next right and left hander, it's easy flat again. You can do again for traffic. If you have traffic here, make sure to line them up and try to catch them once they go wide after this curb. If you have a bit of overspeed there, you can easily go around the outside of a GT car here. If you wait behind them and wait for on the bumper of a GT car here, and you have to accelerate from this corner here, it's going to take you a lot longer before you're alongside. So what you want to do is use that downforce that you have, leave a bit of a gap, use that downforce to go faster in the corner, and then get past way before the next corner. Because it can get very tight in the second sector here with traffic, and especially in an endurance race, you don't want to take the risk of going side by side with other cars through here. Then the next important corner we're going to look at again is turn 5. You want to brake on the curb here as much as possible. You want to brake as much as possible in a straight line. So I start braking a bit while I'm still turning, but once I'm going straight, I can brake a bit more. And for turn 5 itself, you want to open up the corner, and you've got two choices. You either take a bit of extra entry speed, go all the way over the inside curb, or you don't take the inside curb much at all, like I'm doing here. Both work quite fine for me. It depends a bit on your setup and how soft you're running the ARBs in this case in this car. If you're running softer ARBs, so anti-roll bars, the car is a bit better over these curbs and you can take the inside curb without bouncing too much. If you're running a bit stiffer, you've got a bit better high-speed performance, but these curbs will be a bit more tricky. The most important thing here is having the car straightened up quite well before hitting this exit curb. So as you can see, once I'm hitting this exit curb here, my car doesn't have to turn much anymore. If it has to turn too much, you can clip this gravel here sometimes, or even when you don't clip the gravel, the car can get very upset if you hit this with a too big angle. So what you want to do, straighten the car as much as possible. That way, once you hit this curb, the car bounces, but it doesn't lose traction, and you can keep a good exit out of the corner. The next two right-handers, you can go quite fast into this right-hander with an LMP2 car. You can rely on the downforce that it has. So you can brake a bit, keep the brakes on quite long into the corner. You don't have to be on throttle too early here because you've got that stability on the rear. And then focus on having the left two tires on this curb and then brake again in a straight line. Now we get to the most tricky corner of the track in my opinion, especially in this car in these weather conditions, because the rear is very, very tricky on the exit here. Want to slow down early, slow into the corner, make sure you're not locking the rears here, first gear, and then if you look at my throttle input, you very, very slowly and gradually start going into the throttle. So it looks a bit like this. And you see, even with this very slow throttle input, my rear starts to step out a bit, which is fine until you hit the TC. If you hit the TC, it's going to cost you a lot of time. So a bit of a slide like this is fine. It's not amazing for your tires, but it's very hard to avoid as long as you stay out of the TC. If you hit the TC, you're going to lose a lot of lap time. Come out of the corner, again, very slow picking up the throttle and try to straighten up the car as quick as you can to give the car that extra bit of traction. You got the long run down in the back straight. This is where there'll be a big difference between very high downforce setups and a bit lower downforce. And then for the last corner, we've got a similar situation as we have in turn 1, where you can either hug the white line, brake in a straight line, which allows you to brake a bit later, or do what I like to do, is angle your car to be able to use this curb on the right side. You have to brake a bit earlier because you're turning while braking, but you do maximize your entry a bit into the final chicane. So I try to brake again just before this first white line I'm braking. The car compresses a lot here. The track goes from going down to going straight. That means the car gets pushed into the road and you can brake very, very hard here. Brake almost 100%, maybe even 100% once the track gets a bit cooler. Get to the right side, close to the curb, try to open up the corner. And all we're focusing on here is trying to keep the car tight on the corner exit here. On the left-hander, try to keep it tight. If we keep it tight enough, we barely have to lift for the right-hander, and we can carry a lot of speed up the hill, which is where you're going to gain a lot of time compared to maybe running a bit deeper, running in the middle of the track here, or running towards the right-hand curb, which gives you a bit of entry speed, but you'll lose twice the amount of time that you gain in the first left-hander going back onto the hill. So very important to keep to the left here and try to focus on getting a good exit out of this right-hander. And what I'm doing here is just a slight lift when I start turning to put a bit of weight on the front tires. Once that weight is on the front tires, once my car's rotating nicely in the corner, I can go flat out and carry a good exit out of the corner. And that's the lap in the LMP2 around Road Atlanta. I quickly want to talk about the strategy options as well. At the start of the race, you will struggle with the rear tires a lot more than when the track temperatures get a bit cooler. At the start of the race, you're probably looking at doing 2 stints maximum on the rear tires. The front tires, you can take the same as the rear tires, but another option for this car is alternating when you're switching the tires. Because the rears are used more in this car than the fronts. What you can do, it is a strategy that works quite well on some tracks, is change the rear tires every 2 stints and change the front tires every 3 stints. That way you save a bit of time in the stop. Your balance is a bit different in stint 3 because you've got new rear tires but old front tires. But because you're struggling for traction, especially at the start, it can be quite quick to just leave the front tires on for that extra stint. And without dropping too much pace, you can gain quite a lot of time in the pits. So that's something to look out for, maybe test yourself. So that was a quick guide for Petit Le Mans in the LMP2 car. I wish everyone good luck. I wish everyone a lot of fun in testing and in the race, and hope you learned something. If you want to watch more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and look out for the next videos.